So, what draws you back into Blade and Soul again and again?
The action combat and like there's like some people that I enjoy playing with as well, and my clan, they're good to hang around with.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what keeps me here.
Are you the guild leader for Vengeful now, or is someone else?
I used to be. Right now I'm at the advisor.
As a advisor or as a ex guild leader, what advice could you give to other guild leaders, like on their selection process, on managing their guild, on stuff like that? Like, is there any things that you wish you knew when you first started or when you started managing a guild and stuff like that?
Well, I already had a lot of guild experience previously before coming to Blade and Soul, so I had a fairly good idea of how to recruit and how to build a guild
Mm-hmm.
when I was the guild leader.
Mm-hmm.
So how I like to do is like I don't just invite anybody because they want to join.
Mm-hmm.
I like to sit down and talk to that person, sort of like an interview, like almost like a job interview, right? Because I want to know more about that person, how they are, before I bring them into the guild.
Mm-hmm. Other than just talking to them and judging their personality and if they're a good fit to the guild, do you also play with them? Like, you do like a set of dailies with them or something to just gauge their skill level?
I mean, like it's probably a good idea to do that as well, but it can be also difficult because to do that with every single person, just to find the time to do that is also a problem.
All right, fair enough. Because that's what I do.
I don't know how you find the time to do that with every single applicant.
So the way that I run my guild is I do that for people that I bring in. And then there are trusted people that I say, listen, if you vouch for that person, I'll accept them. But, they're under your wing. So if something happens, they cause drama or something, that's on the person who vouched it. It's not on the person who joined the guild. It's not their fault. It's going to be the fault of the person who vouched that person in. So everyone who vouches people in are a lot more cautious, and then they do the work for me. They make sure that that person is good, because if they mess up, they're the ones that are gonna get punished.
Oh, okay. So for the recruitment process, besides like what I talked about there, if people have friends that they want to bring in, we say yeah, sure, no problem. They can just join. We don't go through the whole process.
Okay. Another question that a lot of people ask me is they're coming into the game without any real life friends. So how do they find friends, or how do they find a good guild, stuff like that? Do you have any advice for them?
How I go about it in a new game is that I'll do research on guilds, because like you can probably find what people say about a guild on forums or anywhere really, if you look it up.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how I sort of base my selection of which guild I want to join. And then once I join, then I'll talk to them, see how it goes, because maybe their sort of mindset or community style is different from what I expect, right? So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that's what I would say is do your research. Hang out with maybe a few of the guild members, see how they are, and that's how you'll get a better idea of the guild in general.
Okay. So when you started playing Blade and Soul, did you join a guild first, or did you make your own guild first?
I joined a guild when I started playing Soul.
How was your experience through that? Is there anything that you might have, any experience that you got from that might be valuable for new players coming in that don't have any experience in any MMOs in general? Like maybe they're coming from an FPS game and this is their first MMO. Like what advice or what tips could you give them on that? Maybe they're having a tough time finding a guild.
Okay. Well, I'd say like first, don't just blindly accept any invitations either, because that's what I did for my first guild, and I didn't really get along with any of them in there, so I didn't stay in that guild for very long.
Mm-hmm.
The guild that I stayed in for longest was Vengeful. It was because the leader talked to me, and I thought he was pretty cool, so that's why I joined. So
Mm-hmm.
I guess you have to like interact with some of the guild members, just party with them and play with them and see how they are,
Mm-hmm.
and that's how you'll see if you like the guild or not.
And what about making friends in Blade and Soul? Because, the F8 experience is pretty daunting. You join in, people say, AP requirement, and then you just blast through the dungeon and no one talks to each other, and then you leave and you re-queue again on the next dungeon. Where is that opportunity for new players to reach out to other people and to to make friends?
I'll say most of my friendships were really random. Like it was through just randomly joining parties in F8 or MSP when MSP was a thing. Because you have to put yourself out there and interact with people, even if you don't know them. Because that's how you make friends with people, right? You won't become friends with someone that you're friends with. Like you become friends with strangers, right? And what I'm trying to say is like you never know until you go out there and experience it yourself.
Again, playing the devil's advocate here. Some people are afraid of talking too much because they're afraid that people are going to find them annoying or find them a little bit too pushy. What's the fine balance between not talking at all and talking too much?
Like honestly, I'll say just try to just be yourself. Let's say if you're a really social butterfly that talks a lot, maybe you can try to hold back a bit, but like it's kind of hard to suppress who you really are, though, right?
Yeah.
I think it's easier just to be yourself. That way, when you're being yourself, you find a group of people who are just like how you are, and that's the kind of group that you want to be with because you get along with them.
And then another question I always get about F8 is I can't find a party to do X dungeon because I don't meet the AP requirements, or I don't meet this, or I can't find people who want to play with me, stuff like that. What advice could you give them about making their own group?
Like make your own group. Like people say, like just like you're having trouble with F8 pugs, so you just make your own like group of friends. Is that what you're saying?
Not only just make your own group of friends. So let's say that you started off. So you just finished the story. You have no friends in the game at the moment because you've been focusing on solo content, and now you're about to jump into F8. And since you only have 940 AP or so, you don't meet the requirements for any of these groups that are looking for party for this and that. So you decide to make your own group because you want to learn the mechanics, you want to experience the game for what it is, and not just LFP and blast through everything.
Okay, I see. I think there are clans that recruit with no requirements, so they could always try to go with those clans first, because then they can easily find groups within those clans to run with.
I'm going to throw an oddball question here. Do you know where to find these clans?
It sucks that there's no like actual clan search function in this game because that would really be helpful. The only way you can find them really is from that clan recruitment chat thing. I forget what it's called, but that's where most of the recruitment goes on for the clans for people who aren't in a clan. Like I think that chat is activated by default.
To be perfectly honest, I feel like saying, oh, just find some friends, find a clan. I feel like this is like a very lazy / cheap excuse for players like us to just kind of avoid the question, because we don't really know how we found our friends or how we found the guild. It makes sense to us because we just found it. It just came naturally to us. But for players that maybe aren't as social, maybe they're introverts, maybe they're shy, for players like them to just reach out and find guilds and find friends, it's very difficult for them. That's what I feel. And that's why I'm trying to, through this podcast, through these interviews, I'm trying to find a solution for these people, because I don't have a solution, because I'm a very extrovert and I'm very outgoing. So people naturally gravitate towards me, and thus I don't have to do anything about like, oh, I need to find a guild. I just start my own guild and everyone comes,
Yeah, there's no real easy solution for people that are really introverted and they can't reach out because of their introvertness. I don't think that's even a word. It's a word now. Anyway,
Yes.
they have to. I don't know. There's no easy way to say it. Like you have to reach out, otherwise no one's gonna notice you. Then, like that's the
Yeah.
thing, right? Like if you're always standing behind the crowd, no one's gonna notice you. I don't know. Like you said, it's hard. It's hard to give some sort of advice on that.
We're going way over time already, but I really don't care because I'm enjoying myself. Do you still have time?
Are we able to reschedule to finish the rest of it, or like how busy is your schedule?
No, I can do whatever because we're almost done. I have like 2 questions left. No, actually, you know what? We'll reschedule and we'll talk a little bit more.
Yeah, because I enjoyed the conversation. For the first time, it's pretty cool, like to talk to you and whatnot. You sound a lot different from your videos, actually.
Yeah, it's because a lot of people don't know but I'm actually heading towards 30. I'm pretty old. I'm 29 right now, and in like 4 months I'm going to be 30. There's a lot of topics that I still want to cover, but I feel like by doing this podcast, especially since Alchemy Yeti's podcast was very successful, like a lot of people really enjoyed that podcast. So I was like, okay, that's the green light to go on and make more of these. And I feel like through this, people can get an understanding that Blade and Soul is a game, but throughout this game, it's about a mindset, about a perspective, and you can really improve yourself as a person and gain a useful skill set out of this mentally that it can help you in life. It's not just, oh, this is a game that we're playing for fun. And I feel like people can gain a lot out of this game, especially patience is a very key thing about this game. Because it's a Korean MMO, it's supposed to be grindy. You're supposed to feel rewarded when you upgrade a piece of gear. Stuff like this that I feel like should be talked more about.
Yeah, no, I agree with those points.
All right, hit the record button. Anyway, let's just hop right into it. So, running your guild, when you were in lead, was there anything that you implemented that solved a lot of issues, or was there not much drama or not much problems to deal with?
Well, there wasn't really much problems or drama to deal with. It was just like, I don't know, I didn't really implement any rules, really need to say. It's just basically, be cool, don't be a dick.
Fair enough. What about raids? Are you considered the raid leader, or is someone else the raid leader?
I'm the raid leader for one of the raid groups, yeah.
When leading a raid, how do you deal with certain problems? For example, people are constantly late, or people don't show up, or just like anomalies like that, where people just don't show up, or something affects the raid negatively.
Well, I always tell people to give us heads up if they are going to be late or if they're going to miss a certain day. That way it helps us plan out so we can get someone to either pilot their accounts if they're not going to be there that day, or we get a sub to replace them for that day.
And then what about attitude? Have you ever had to deal with people that are just toxic in general, or just negative, or just maybe they don't like another player so they bid them up or stuff like that?
Actually haven't had that issue in the raid, but because like we pretty much set a price for what people start out for the bids, like a min bid, and we allow them to bid each other as long as the accessory that they need is actually an accessory they need, not just like for their secondary build or something like that, or their secondary element. I mean, as long as it's for their main element and they can use it, then they're allowed to bid for that element.
Okay, so for example, let's say that a fire earring drops from TT, and then someone needs it for maybe awakening, and another person needs it because they don't have it. Do you have rules implemented that say, oh, the person who doesn't have it gets priority, even though they can't pay as much gold as the person who's willing to pay extra for the awakening?
Yeah, that's how we basically do it. So, like you said, the person that doesn't have that fire earring and they need it, we give that to them. So, for example, in our raid, we have 2k gold as the minimum. So, pretty much most people can pay that. If they don't have that much money, like sometimes they'll just pay us 1k and they'll be like, yeah, we don't really care too much. Like we don't make a huge deal out of it because it's still like it's a fellow guild member, right? So we try to help them out.
Wow, 2k for a minimum bid is quite a lot, isn't it?
I guess because we're kind of whales, so we're used to it.
Oh, I mean, I guess because like if you look at my raid, my min bids are like 100 gold, and like most accessories go by for like 500 tops. That's why I was a bit surprised that 2,000 is a lot.
So I guess there's like when something drops and nobody needs it, but they need it for awakening upgrade, then they can just pay like 100 gold for it. That's all we charge.
Okay. It's just because like TT accessories 2,000 gold seems fair because it's recent content, new stuff.
Yeah, it's recent content. Like for VT, we basically don't even charge that much at all. It's probably like 50 gold or 100 gold.
Yeah, okay, I get it. So other than that, what about tilt? Like, you've been in progression. Like, how long are your raids normally?
Normally we do like 3 hours a night. Well, not every day, but like, on our specified raid days.
Okay, and how many raids do you do a week?
At first we were doing 2, and then some availability opened up, so we're now doing 3. So I guess 9 hours a week.
Wow, that's a lot. We only do 1 raid a week. We do it on the weekends because, I don't know, a lot of us have jobs and then our time zones are different. Are the majority of your players all in the same time zone, like NA?
Yeah, they're like within that I guess range of the of NA time zones, so from like PST to CST and EST.
Okay. All right. Fair enough.
So
Fair
it
enough.
helps with the raid schedule because then it makes it a lot easier to you know plan
Yeah.
things out.
Ours is a lot harder because we've got Australians, we've got me in China, we've got a guy in the UK, and we've got a bunch of Americans, and it's
Oh,
just
so you
it's a
guys got people all over the place.
yeah. So it's super hard to get everyone together because the majority of my guild is like ages 18 to 22, I guess. So some are students, but some are like just getting into like their first job and stuff. So yeah, it's difficult to line up times.
Yeah, it's about the same here for like the age range. Like there's people in school, people just out working. But like I think for the most part, most people in Vengeful are NA time though.
Okay, yeah. So that's a nice thing to have because time zones are easier to line up, and also your gear requirement is a lot less because you don't have ping issues affecting DPS and stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly.
But moving back to the question that I had originally was managing tilt. So, for example, when you guys were progressing through Twilight Temple, for example, the third boss, it's a huge spike in difficulty. How do you handle people getting frustrated or wipes constantly? Like people get upset eventually. They get tilted.
Right. Yeah, people. Yeah, it's understandable because the progression is so much more difficult for boss three than the other first two bosses. To manage tilt, we do take breaks here and there. Sometimes we'll take like a 5, just because our rates are like what 3 hours a night. So to go 3 hours constantly can just be like a lot of wear and tear on people.
Mm-hmm.
So it's nice to have just like that 5 minute break. Go take a water, take a breather. Just calm down. And because for the most part, we do make progression every day we raid, so people don't get really too tilted.
Mm-hmm.
But like it's a
Okay.
very unforgiving boss. Like that's what people need to like understand too. Like if people do get tilted, you need to like look at the boss and see like the mechanics of it, because like yeah, the mechanics are simple once you do understand it, but they're very unforgiving because any mistake that you make, it basically wipes the raid.
You know the saying, your raid is only as strong as your weakest link. Do you have this problem where you in your raid you have certain players that are mechanically weaker than others, but they have a really good attitude and that's why you keep them?
Yeah, because like we do work with R1 too. Like so before we start the raid, we always check and see if anyone has questions about their role and what they're doing. So we always try to clear it up beforehand. And if someone is messing up on something, usually not me, but the other guy in the raid, because he has more raid knowledge of the boss, so he's more
Mm-hmm.
familiar with mechanics and how they work. So he usually like talks to them and coaches them to help them do their role better.
Okay. Do you have anyone in your raid that has like, maybe a weaker computer and so they're getting lag spikes or they're getting FPS drops and they have to, deal with that issue?
Yeah, that's probably like half the rate. That's why we wear our Hong Moon outfits, because it helps with the soul burn leg.
Does it?
Yeah, actually, yeah, that's what they told me. And if you wear your Hong Moon outfit, when you soul burn, because like the effect of soul burn when you activate it and when it goes away, there's like that huge like leg spike or whatever you get from that.
Mm-hmm.
Apparently, if you wear the Hong Moon outfit, it actually like diminishes that like greatly.
Oh, okay, okay. We might try that then. That's new.
Yeah.
That's new news. I didn't know that.
Yeah, and of course, people with weaker computers, we always ask them to, lower their graphics and whatnot.
Yeah, like for example, we had an issue before, which was the first boss when we had to do Soul Burst. A lot of people had really weak computers. So when we were doing Soul Burst, their FPS would drop to like 10 and it was really difficult for them to play. And that was quite a challenge.
Yeah, like even with like decent computers, it can still be very laggy in this raid.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's a shame that the game isn't as well optimized as it could be.
What
But
what do you
that's another
think
point.
the Unreal 4 engine will do? Do you think they'll solve most of the issues?
I think it should. I'm not too technical when it comes to the game engines, but I believe I did read that the Unreal Engine 4 is definitely a lot more efficient
Mm-hmm.
than Unreal Engine 3. So it should help offset the performance drops that we currently have now. once it's in place.
And then, have you ever had to call off a raid? Like, just either straight out cancel a raid, or just tell people after like an hour, being like, "Oh, let's just take tonight off" or something?
We've canceled days before because maybe like the main tank can't make it that day.
Mm-hmm.
So we canceled because of that. To cancel is just like straight off during the middle of the raid. That's only happened once because we had a guy that like pretty much went full tilt and he kind of just
Mm-hmm.
left.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so he just needed some like time away from raiding, and just because like raiding can be very demanding, very stressful, which is understandable.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So we basically had to find a replacement for that.
Oh wow, it was that bad. He just like straight on rage quit, more or less.
Yeah, more or less.
Dang. So moving on from that would be the new changes, I guess. Basically, the Moonstone changes for the Vortex Temple necklace. What do you feel about that? That's a pretty huge cost reduction.
Like it is, I'm looking at it right now. It's like what used to be 400, and then they brought it down to 160. In that area, it's a very huge cost reduction. But then I see they added in soul stones, sacred crystals, Elysians.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But
Like I think
they've reduced the Moonstones by a third, and they've also reduced the PTSs by half. So even though they did add all those other things, it's still cheaper than 6 PTSs, right?
yeah, it's definitely still cheaper overall. It's just I guess if they had the mindset of actual reduction, then I'm not sure why they added in the other materials as well. Like couldn't they just straight up reduced it and just left it as is? That's what I'm kind
Mm,
of wondering.
like from what I was thinking, my train of thought was because players such as yourself and me, we're sitting on 2-3 stacks of 9,999 soulstone crystals. Well, I don't know if you are, but I am. So it's just like, oh, I finally have something to use them on. And the same with the Elysians. I'm sitting on 2,800 Elysian crystals and 1,600 Elysian orbs. It's just a lot of materials.
Yeah, it is a lot of materials. I don't have that much as you do. Like these other materials are definitely easier to get. It's just, I guess, it takes quite a while to amass all that stuff though, too.
That's true. I think the logic that they were going for is just to utilize more of the items that people usually don't use for anything. Like the soulstone crystals recently, there's been a spike in demand because of our heart. Like to upgrade our hearts required a lot of soulstone crystals and a lot of sacred crystals. But other than that, there were no items before that needed these materials.
Or like, I guess, like trying to like spread out the allocation of resources, so to say.
Yeah, so people, they're happy with whatever they get, I guess. They're like, "Oh, I need all of these materials." So it just changes the value of each item. Like if we rewind maybe 3 months ago, Elysian orbs and moonstones were pretty equal in value. But if you rewind 6 months ago, Moonstones was clearly a lot more expensive than Elysian orbs. And I think they're just trying to balance out the economy, more or less.
Probably. It looks like that's what they're trying to do.
I don't know. This is just what I think they're doing.
I guess my mindset of a cost reduction was like a straight up cost reduction, right? Like no catch. That's how I thought of it.
That's true, I suppose. Like a cost reduction that was just like if they just lowered the moonstones and then lowered the PTS without any other increase of other materials.
Yeah, like basically like reduce it, but there's no catch, right? Like nothing else added.
Do you think that would make some people unhappy though? Especially some players that spent a lot of time farming Naksun for those 1,200 moonstones to upgrade their necklaces. And then suddenly this massive cost reduction comes in. Do you think that would make some of them salty? They'd be like, oh man, I'm going to send a ticket in to get my necklace reverted because, I'm saving so much more moonstones.
Well, definitely. I think with either or, it still will make players, salty about it because they're constantly always reducing the cost for weapons and accessories anyway. So that's the price that you pay for if you immediately upgrade gear as soon as it's released. Like, that's the pros and cons, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Max gear on the first week or first day and then for it to be reduced in cost like a couple months later, but you enjoyed you reap the benefits of having that max gear.
So it's just the premium basically. You're paying this premium to enjoy this powerful gear for the first, 3-6 months before they do the cost reductions.
Yeah, and they're always going to do cost reductions. So it's not like players can just hold on to the items and just wait for the reductions, because you need that DPS to keep progressing in especially for raids, right? Because it like the further you get in TT, the higher the DPS requirement is that's needed to avoid the enrage mechanic.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Okay. And then next up is the sealed Aransu badges. What are your thoughts on that?
I heard those were like what, sellable now? Is that what's going on?
The sealed Aransu badges, how it works is, remember how we have sealed Hive Queen materials and sealed Divine Greystones, right?
Right.
There's a chance of dropping a regular one, which is bound on character or bound on account, and then there's also a chance of dropping a sealed one. So when we kill, for example, Twin Asuras, it has a chance to drop a sealed Frostburn orb or a regular one. So a regular one is bound on character. And if it drops a sealed one, you can sell it on F5, you can trade it to a friend, trade it to anyone.
I gotcha. I mean that just gives players more of a chance to get VT gear, really, that aren't able to find a group to raid with. Pretty much opens up the market too, right, to competition, right? So prices are going to go down because people are always undercutting.
What are your estimated prices for this? Do you have like a projection? Do you think that when the patch first kicks in, how much do you think these badges will go for?
I think they'll start around like about 2K or so.
Yeah, and then just drop down eventually, just like Hive Queen mats.
Yeah, they'll probably start out for 2K, and then they're probably gonna settle around, I'm gonna say like around 1,200. Most raids, if you look at their the price that they charge, they usually charge about, I guess depends on what raid you go to, anywhere from 1 to 3K, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Hopefully the audience doesn't roast me on anything.
Nah, I don't think so. I honestly don't think so. You have, even though you don't upload as many videos, but you have a lot of respect from the community. Because, for example, your Twilight Temple guides, your Vortex Temple guides, when you put them out there at the beginning, you don't get a lot of views because people aren't progressing. They're not doing that content yet. But you put it out there so early that when people do need it, it's there for them to access. And then for me, it's the other way around. By the time I do put out a video, it's already a little bit too late. Like a lot of people have already progressed through that content, or they already know how to do that dungeon. For example, my Twin Asura guide. I put it out there maybe 3 or 5 months after yours, I think, because it just takes me a lot longer to post out a video because I try to boil things down, and the advantages of my videos, the main selling point is to make things as simple to understand as possible, and it just takes me a really long time. Like for example, SK. Like SK, I'm still struggling because I'm trying to get the point of view of me doing every single mechanic on multiple raids, just so that I can tell them, look, this is how you ball drive. This is the timing for your stealth on sword dance. This is how you tank range add, how you tank melee add, etc.
You go in like the very minute details as well.
Yeah, because there's a lot of things that just make life easier. For example, tanking. When I did range tank on Fireside on Twin Asuras, like before I ever did that, I just said in my guide, I was like, that is the hardest role. But then when I actually did it, I was like, it's actually not that hard. I feel like a lot of the roles in Blade and Soul, it looks complicated at the beginning, but after you learn it, then it's kind of like, oh, that wasn't too bad.
Yeah, exactly. And like, I feel a lot of mechanics are kind of rehashed too. It's like, can't they think of anything new?
Like, is there anything on the third boss that is new?
Let me see on the third boss. Like, yes and no, because like he has the sharing mechanic, which a lot of bosses have, like for the chain thing.
Yeah.
It has that, which is already a mechanic that's already existing. What else here? Targets the furthest player with bombardment. Ooh, okay. tank must stay close or raid wipes. Okay, I've seen that before.
Yep.
It fires missiles at the walls and you have to block them. So pretty much like blocking orbs and twin sewer, all that kind of stuff. So it's like nothing really new. Just like they pretty much threw every mechanic into like their boss.
Well, I mean, at least they don't have the time stop thing from Sandstorm Temple, because that was new, I think. The thing where you get frozen and you have to KD on the first boss.
Oh, that was new. So that was different. Yeah, so that was actually kind of cool.
Yeah.
It's kind of refreshing to see something new.
And then on Sandstorm Temple, the last boss, where there's the sand explosions, I think, the 10 sand explosions or so. That is also sort of new, but it wasn't very difficult to catch on the pattern. And once you explained it, then I was just like, oh, okay, that's pretty easy to dodge.
Yeah, I guess it's kind of similar to the last boss on Hollow's Heart when he does those like purple explosions.
Oh, yeah, it is. Yeah, it's very similar to that, actually.
It's just a different like graphical effect, really. That like
Yeah.
visual effect that looks. So,
But does the Hollow's
yeah.
Heart one have a pattern?
I think it's completely random.
Yeah, I think the Hollow's Heart one is completely random, but the Sandstorm Temple one, there's a set pattern, so you can just dodge.
So they did like
all
a
of those.
minor tweak to it. It's like, oh boy.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Like, what would be a new mechanic that could be cool that they could add into a boss fight?
Something that'd be interesting because we have a knockback CC, right?
Yeah.
So I've always kind of joked about like, oh, there should be a mechanic where you knock back the boss into some sort of like zone that damages it or something like that. Like that'd be kind of cool.
Yeah, that would be pretty cool. Yeah, because I mean,
But
like the first boss in Peacekeeper, like when you have to rescue people of the knockback, that was new to me. I've never seen that one before.
Yeah, that's a little different. I don't know. They can always, I guess, get mechanical inspirations from other games. Like it's not a bad thing to do. It's just don't copy it exactly, right? Just take some inspiration from that and implement it into Blade and Soul.
Yeah, exactly. Like, have you been watching any of the new dungeons, like the Opera Dungeon and stuff?
No, I haven't watched any of
Okay.
those.
So the Opera Dungeon has a really fun mechanic that I really enjoy. So for the first mini boss, the boss is more or less like a fire dancer. And so he makes the entire floor like fire, and if you step on the floor, you just instantly die. But he creates like these 4 little islands that are safe zones. And so what you're supposed to do is you're supposed to lead him into these safe zones. In order to get from one island to the other, you either have to SS or you have to hook as a gunner, or basically SS. Every class has an SS. So you'd SS to the second island and lead the boss towards you. And then the moment he steps on the island or that safe zone, he gets damaged a little bit and it resets your SS. So that now 2 of you guys can SS to the next island, and then 3 of you SS to the 4th island, and so forth and so on. And that mechanic is pretty fun. That's something new. And then for the last boss, you have to play around with like some musical notes. There are blue orbs and there's red orbs, and you need to stack all the blue orbs together, and then you have to shoot them at the boss or something. It looks really fun though.
What is with NCSoft and like orbs or like balls? They always have that for every boss almost.
Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question.
Like, can't they at least change the shape of it? Like make it like a triangle or like a square?
I don't know. That's interesting.
But for that first boss mechanic that you talked about, the first half of it reminds me of a mechanic in Destiny 2. In one of the strikes, I forget what the name of the strike was, but the boss will like stomp on the floor, and it causes the floor to heat up, like the entire floor. But there's certain pillars that you can pretty much jump on and hide up there. Until the heat goes away. Otherwise, you take a lot of damage from the heat.
I think the Opera Dungeon will be pretty fun. I enjoy it. I just hope that they don't break anything by porting it over onto NA, like how they broke Drowning Deeps.
Yeah, I kind of wish they would fix the desync as well.
Yeah, but I mean, that's a netcode issue, isn't it?
Yeah, that's like a netcode issue, I think, because I think you'll see it in. I think it was the boss 3 of Master Hong's tower thing.
Oh, Dochun, yeah.
Or wait, or was it boss? Or was it boss 2? It's the chick.
Oh, that's boss 2. That's what's her
boss
name?
2.
Yeah.
Yeah. When she does her mechanic and there was those like flame crosses that happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. You'll see in the video when I did a guide on that. I was totally like out of that, like maybe like just like half a second out of that like visual cue. of that
Mm-hmm.
flame, it still hit me. I'm like, what?
Yeah, I don't know, dude. The Master Hong dungeon just seems really wacky. Like when you play a summoner on Master Hong, sometimes you know how you see his indicator on like which side, which half pizza he's gonna do. Sometimes he'll
Yeah.
do it, and then the safe zone will flip. So you'll see the animation,
What?
and you'll see the death zone being casted, but then a second later, the death zone will flip over to the safe zone, and it's just like, what is this? It's really
Whoa.
weird, and it's only
I've never had that.
yeah, it only happens on summoners too. Like I've tried it on my gunner and all my other classes. It's fine. It's just summoner. It's something to do with the cat, I'm pretty sure.
I see. So maybe like a targeting bug or something.
Yeah, and it's really annoying because like you'd get him down to like 30%. It's like, oh, last phase, and it's like flips over, and you're like, what? Ah.
Yeah, maybe the cat is really like a double agent or something. You know.
Yeah, dude, freaking my cat Marky just wants to kill me all the time. You know, he double buffs me all the time in Black Tower and DKV. All right, so other than that, I guess we're done with like BNS talk. But like what games? What new games are you playing recently?
So right now I'm playing Assassin's Creed Odyssey
Mhm.
and Black Ops 4.
Okay, are you gonna be giving Maple Story 2 a shot or not?
Probably not. I don't think I have time for that.
Oh, it's not your cup of tea, or you just don't have time?
I'd say both.
Yeah, all right, fair enough. Do you play any Blizzard games?
I did play Diablo 3
Yeah,
and Overwatch.
yeah, I hear there's gonna be a new Diablo announcement in BlizzCon next month, which should be pretty
Oh, like a
interesting.
Diablo 4?
I'm really hoping it's gonna be a Diablo 4 because I'm ready for that.
Oh, yeah, that'd be really good.
Okay, so do you have anything that you want to say to my viewers, or to your viewers, or to anyone that might be watching this video later on in the future?
I'd say just while you're playing Blade and Soul, just play it for fun. Don't stress out too much over it. Just remember that it's a game. You're gonna have fun.
Okay, that's a wrap.
What can I say except you're welcome for the hero?